Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We just saw the conclusion of a very complicated scene between the Impact World Champion Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander at the conclusion of our main event matchup. Alexander defeating Khan. Alex Shelley was our guest on commentary, but things certainly got complicated. We are going to try and flesh out all those things. Speaking of complicated, how about the 10-person tag team matchup that went down earlier on tonight with implications towards the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match that'll go down at Bound for Glory. Remember, the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match, whomever wins that night at Bound for Glory gets a guaranteed Impact title shot anytime, any place of their choosing. Whichever winning team this evening was able to score the victory, they will move on to next week. We'll see a five-way matchup. The person who wins next week's five-way matchup on Access TV will get the number 20 spot, the last spot, the most coveted spot within the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. The person who gets pinned or submitted gets the number one spot, meaning they have to run the entirety of the gauntlet wire to wire. Boy, this was a complicated matchup to watch. Not necessarily because of the rules. It's the precedent's been set for this before in the past in Impact. It's creative. It's the fact that there are so many interpersonal things going on. It was very complicated in that respect.
I don't know. At least I didn't. Do they draw straws for these teams or something?
Teams broke down after a while.
We saw Singh and Shira on opposite teams. We saw Tango and Jake Something on the same team. We saw Kylan King and Jody Threat, who've had issues recently. They're ending up on the same team. I don't think they're choosing it, but either way, it made for a lot of very interesting bedfellows.
Well, here's the thing, and you always like to say it, is that there are no friends in wrestling. Well, next week, it's a five-way match. It's every person for themselves, so I can understand why these teams did break down the way they did. It just got out of control. Jake Something getting the victory. Jake Something continues to stack up very impressive performances.
I mean, he's looking good heading into that five-way. Next week, he could secure himself a very tidy spot in that Call Your Shot, which could then, obviously, we've seen it happen before, could lead to huge, huge things for his career here in Impact.
Yeah. This was a huge night for us here in Impact Wrestling because we got to pay homage to the roots of wrestling here in Memphis.
ABC versus Good Hands. Fans' revenge. We take the best fans in Memphis, we surround the ring with them. They got leather straps in their hand and they can wail on anybody.
Chris Bay and Ace Austin, the ABC, to try and settle things. Their issues with the Good Hands, who did collude with the Rascals to help the Rascals win the Impact World Tag Team titles.
Which I am shocked by.
And the Good Hands also preventing the ABC from advancing the Tag Team title tournament that went down in August. So that collusion was proven. However, Jason Hotch is currently on paternity leave. We send him our best. And Jay Vidal got in some hot water last week in the main event. Giselle Shaw was ticked off and basically fed Vidal to the Wolves. The Wolves being the fabulous Impact fans here at ringside with straps in their hands.
You talk about collusion. Not one of them laid a finger or a strap on Ace Austin or Chris Bay. You want to talk about collusion. And they're cheap here in Memphis. I bet it took $1 and a Snickers bar in each one of their pockets. And that's probably all they had to do. That was ridiculous. That's not how everybody's supposed to get equal whip in action. Not what happened.
At Drama King Matt to all people from Memphis that have something to take up.
They don't know how to use the internet.
You're going to love this. The ABC get the victory. And remember, by virtue of Chris Bay winning in Feast or Fired, the ABC have a future Impact World Tag Team title shot. I hope that John Schuyler's stings and abrasions and everything hurt very much. When we come back here on the Impact Post Show, all kidding aside, we are going to dive into the situation regarding the digital media champion Tommy Dreamer and a egregious scene with Crazy Steve, and also the complications surrounding our main event, Josh Alexander versus Khan, and the involvement of the Impact World Champion Alex Shelley.
A former champion whose reign was the longest in Impact Wrestling history.
I'm taking back that Impact World Championship.
The walking weapon, Josh Alexander. He is the current Impact Wrestling World Champion.
There's nobody that's a bigger fan of Alex Shelley than me.
Alex Shelley.
A bigger fan of mine or a bigger mark for me?
Impact Wrestling presents Bound for Glory, live from Chicago, Saturday, October 21st. Tickets are on sale now.
We are back here on the Impact Post Show. We learned so much about a lot of different wrestlers this evening. One thing that we really learned, that some things I'd never heard before, is how intimate the relationship was at one point between the reigning digital media champion Tommy Dreamer and Crazy Steve, who, by virtue of Feast or Fired, has a guaranteed digital media title shot. Had you heard any of those things about Dreamer and Steve's past?
No, not about them personally. You know, we Tommy Dreamer talked about the things Steve has overcome as a wrestler, his blindness.
Sure,
You addressed that in your
that.
comment. Some of those things that have been out there for public knowledge, but the stories about offering up his hotel room so Steve could save a couple bucks in his early days here in Impact, and just how close they had gotten over bonding over the certain things in their family. No, that was all brand new news to me, and it seemed like it touched something in Steve during that conversation, during that speech from Tommy Dreamer. We saw Steve starting.
I love you.
It
I
looked
assume
like
he was tearing up
It looked
and
like he was crying.
touching him in a way that I didn't think was possible considering the actions of Crazy Steve over the last several weeks, but it's not really how it ended.
Crazy Steve stabbed Tommy Dreamer in the spine with a fork.
I'm used to a lot of sounds of anguish and pain in wrestling. Guys who get legs broken, elbows busted, faces split open, right? Barbed wire massacre, things of that ilk. But you heard Tommy. This wasn't a wrestling bump.
It was sickening.
Right? Dreamer was crying in pain because somebody was literally jabbing a sharp object, into his. I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to talk about it a whole lot more, but it was uncomfortable. It was disturbing. Steve made his point, I guess.
Before we sign off here, I do want to talk about what happened in our main event. Josh Alexander one-on-one with Khan. Josh Alexander was the first opponent for Khan here in Impact Wrestling a little less than 2 years ago. Now, that match ended very quickly. It was an irate Josh Alexander, who was marching towards the Impact World Championship in early 2022, was able to get Khan to submit very quickly with the ankle lock. Khan and Diener believed that if they took out the walking weapon, maybe they could reestablish the design within Impact Wrestling. Alexander was able to withstand a very complicated situation. The Impact World Champion Alex Shelley was with us on commentary. Diener got involved with the steel chair that nearly took out you and I here, and some incidental contact between Alexander and Shelley. Shelley said to us on commentary, "Don't judge me by my words going forward, judge me by my actions." Clearly, that incidental contact there stirred up something in Shelley's mind, and this is very complicated. As I've said, I feel like a broken record, but still, this is a complicated situation.
I think a lot of this is, look, I believe there is respect between Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander. I believe when he says that. I think a lot of that, though, is a bit of a smokescreen going on. He's pissed off at the way Josh Alexander has approached this title match. He feels like Josh Alexander feels like he deserves that title back and doesn't realize the mountain he will have to climb, the mountain that is Alex Shelley. And Alex Shelley, no good deed goes unpunished. And the minute he tried to save Josh Alexander's ass, the next minute he's dropping it.
I think incidental contact, Josh Alexander ultimately had the best of intentions, was not trying to strike
And so did Alex Shelley.
But these two are at a razor's edge, and they continue to have these moments where the worst in them comes out. And you do wonder how this is all going to really go down at Bound for Glory, because for Josh Alexander, this is all he has wanted since returning from injury. He got right in the face of Alex Shelley at Slammiversary after the main event, Shelley defeating Nick Aldis. And I think those comments by the likes of Aldis, other challengers for the Impact World Championship over the last handful of months, have gotten into the brain of Alex Shelley that he has something to prove, and he's going to do it at the expense of Josh Alexander. However, these two men, there's a lot of respect, but it's all about the championship come Bound for Glory. We are going to keep our eyes focused on this. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Impact Post Show. He's Rehwoldt. I'm Hannifan. See you next time.